Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the panel started. We have among us people who are very close when it comes to technology knowledgeability, but we represent different disciplines. Let's start out with Andrzej, who represents PIIT, microeconomy perspective. We have colleagues from microbusiness looking from the point of view of different sectors of the industry. We have Jarek, who is going to represent the analysis-based perspective. He will show us or speak with the global market perspectives in mind. So, Jarek, if I could ask you to make reference to what I said, where should we invest from the viewpoint of your company? What areas are more significant than others, and why? Thank you, Remek. A brief analytical introduction is as follows. The growth of the Polish IoT market is within our eyesight, has been for the past 6 months at least. Every 6 months we create an analysis on what expenditure was done in different sectors of the IT, ICT, and machinery technology, and we also analyze various use cases. We look at how the smart city industry 4.0 or smart life sectors have been growing, and what follows from the data is very interesting. We carry out the same analyses throughout the world, so we can compare different markets. What do we see? We see a lot of growth. Last year noted 6.4% of growth, up to $2.2 billion. That's the net worth of this market. On the one hand, we can be highly satisfied with the fact that the market is growing, and on top of that, we are forecasting that we can expect double-digit growth. But what might be of concern to us is that when we compare our index of growth with the average of other countries, we see that we are not equal to them, to other European member states. We have a smaller market, but we have the same growth indexes, which means that we are going to have to catch up, and we are beginning to lag behind. Now let's ask about the individual sectors of the economy. I understand the high-level perspective, but from the viewpoint of IDC, could you talk about some of the branches of the economy that the Polish economy should focus on? The IoT's past is very big. Before, we looked at the M2M market, so it came as little surprise to us that the sectors that were growing based on the M2M, machine-to-machine technology, is most developed. And by that I mean transportation and logistics. Those are the two biggest, strongest components of the Polish market. That poses a threat as well, because in a way we have over-focused on the use of this technology, on M2M use of technology, and we are losing from our viewpoint something else, that we have thousands of other ways of using the technology out there, and that poses a threat. Fortunately, a lot is happening in this field. You mentioned the platform for the industry of the future. Now, that's the area where the knowledge transfer towards business, towards the industry is happening, and that's sector number 2 when it comes of the utility of IoT. To me, there is no Industry 4.0 without the growth of IoT, if it is well defined and run concurrently with the growth of artificial intelligence, especially when we include Polish businesses. I've been looking at various reports on the matter, and I've carried out a lot of discussions with people who are running smaller or bigger businesses, and the consensus among them is that today we can no longer find the workforce that is as inexpensive as it used to be. So we need to be supported by technology. The labor costs are not as low as they used to be. So we have to apply IoT to stay competitive. From the macroeconomics point of view, what do you think? What areas would you outline as having the biggest potential? The people in the panel are very renowned. I see that there are members of the Polish Chamber for Telecommunications. I am humbled by being here, and I don't want to take the floor away from them. I know that they want to share a lot of interesting information with you. A lot is happening when it comes to IoT. So let me fall back to the report that we conducted in PIIT and the Ministry of Digital Affairs, and to take things in a slightly different direction. We have to know where to look for opportunity as Poland. Maybe not in line with the expectations of the chamber, but I will say that agriculture has potential. It might come as a paradox, but the Poland has a lot of opportunity in healthy food. If the Chinese are thinking about how to sell local products and produce throughout China, we might follow suit and promote the Polish sausage or the Polish soup or the Polish bread. We can use the internet to sell these items online. I don't know if you're aware, but Poland is a powerhouse when it comes to orchids. I don't know if it's the agriculture or the industry in and of itself, but it uses AI. Polish farmers can grow those flowers. The entire process is fully automated. You have to be able to count the flower to see if it stands on 2 feet or 3 feet. You have to take the flower to the wholesaler. All of that, the selecting and the delivery is done by AI. And then the orchids have to be packaged. So using AI for this routine kind of work has already seen the light of day in Poland. Agriculture is implementing sensors to better the processes. A lot is happening at PIIT. Let's talk about that. Let's land on the ground again. Mikołaj, what is your take on these things? I know that you're mainly focused on the utilities. You mentioned when we were talking that this sector is not seeing too many barriers. Let me speak like the true Santa Claus would. I always deliver presents when I say that the report that you quoted by the Ministry of Digital Affairs reported one of the biggest affairs in ITC and the lack of infrastructure. That is no longer the case. The infrastructure is out there. The old M2M approach that was so cemented is already gone. We are now entering the new phase, and what comes as a surprise is that the utilities producers in Poland are doing very well. The narrow band technology in utilities is something that I would really vouch for. Only one Polish producer is actually ready to implement those measures. The Croatians, the Italians are ahead of us. I'm talking about gauges, meters, anything that has to do with the provision of utilities. We are ready to deploy new technology. But in the B2B domain that I specialize in, we've been focusing on that which cannot be measured. The Polish carriers, not only T-Mobile, but also the competition to it, saw that 20 to 30% of the land was not gauged for lack of meters.
So let us give the floor to Paweł. Every year I'm supposed to say something, so it's kind of boring, like Leslie Nielsen appearing and saying the same things. So we have developed a gauge, a meter that was awarded with a prize. And we were supposed to get a lot of support, financial support. But how shall I put it? Technologically, we are ready, but there are no orders in Poland. 10 years ago, in Energa, we implemented AMI. The meters are the same. We tell them that those meters should be changed, that we have new technologies, that we can gather data in a new way. We are on the 30th place in the innovation ranking because, we don't support one another. When somebody comes up with a new idea, the others say, oh, it's not going to work. You shouldn't do this. For example, I went to Kazakhstan because there I got a chance to try out our meters in Kazakhstan. So the energy sector for me is the most important one. It should absorb IoT technology because you cannot keep the status quo that is based on fossil fuels. We'll need coal in the future for producing materials. If we burn it in a stupid way, we won't have raw materials, we won't have resources. And those people who already have their PV cells will come up with an idea of creating microgrids at some point. This sector is very interesting from the point of view of IoT. Another barrier, if I may talk about barriers, the biggest challenge for implementing any kind of innovative technology in Poland is people, ladies and gentlemen. Z generation. This is our curse. This is one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. We created a generation of perfect consumers who don't want to do anything more than consume. They don't want to work. I have great difficulty encouraging people to do something. For example, in China, you do have the ethos of work. And in Silicon Valley, you don't have engineers who would leave work at 4 to go to the gym. They just work. They work hard because if they don't do this, they will be their jobs will be taken over by the Chinese or by the Indians. So what's happening in the job market is scary. The IT engineers are becoming worse. They have lower skills, but the demand is growing, and you have to pay them more and more. If we burn all this coal that we have in Poland, if we just get suffocated by smog, the problem will be that you will have nobody to work with. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to work. This is one of the biggest problems of Poland and Europe. People don't want to work. People don't want to risk people don't want to make effort. But those 5 companies that have the greatest income are companies that have loads of consumers. People who don't think, people who don't do anything, people who just consume. How to solve it? We'll have the kind of Poland. The kind of Poland we will have depends on the kind of education we give our children. From the perspective of the energy sector, let me put it this way. We need an economy based on a solid energy foundation. For example, one big company decided to place their data center not in Poland but in Germany because they don't see Poland as a place with a secure energy future. And they know that Germany really decided to go for renewables. And then a question to our representative of Samsung. You represent the B2C world. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, a very controversial one. Let me have a look at your question from a different perspective, from the perspective of a household. A report by Park was published this year that says that 40% of households will use smart homes in the future. These are solutions that are to make our lives easier. 50% of those solutions will be managed by voice. And in the next decade, it is expected that at least 20 devices at every home will be run by the Internet of Things, and we expect 31 billion devices in the Internet of Things in the next decade. What kind of solutions would we have in our homes? Algorithm will make it possible for us to operate devices in our home. Those devices will learn about our needs. You can imagine your bathroom being heated to the right level. At Samsung we have, for example, fridges that can order food from the shop. At Samsung in Poland, we carried out a piece of research. This showed us the main barriers hampering implementation of technologies. First of all, costs. Costs like the internet use, the electricity use, and then problems with interoperability. In the ADC presentation, we heard about interoperability. For devices to cooperate, first and foremost, they need to be operational, and they need to communicate with one another. How can we make devices made by different companies communicate? I hope we are going to present our smart home platform this year in Poland. Another barrier is cybersecurity. There will be loads of interconnected devices all over the world, but this means some level of risk. All devices will be connected to the internet, but is it going to be safe? In the Polish ICT Chamber of Commerce, there is a team working on cybersecurity. Last year, we organized a conference on the IoT, and we specified many problems. Is Poland preparing for the future of the Internet of Things? We have a research center that is preparing a certification scheme. Certification is needed, but it's not the only tool to ensure security. And the last thing, talking about barriers. I would like to refer to what Pavel said. We lack knowledge in Poland. We don't know how to configure devices. Maybe it's about the Z generation not really caring and not wanting to learn. I guess you need to be a technology freak to be able to carry out configuration of all your devices. So I would say that education is our biggest challenge. This is a challenge that we cannot escape. The conference of today gives us an opportunity to talk about the benefits of technological solutions. Like, for example, that you'll be able to manage your home in an easier way, both when you're at home and both when you're away. Okay, so let us try to wrap up by, let's say, making a statement about the three most important elements. So if we were today a possibility to choose three main areas on which we should focus, what would it be? You asked a very interesting question about the nature of IoT. In short-term perspective, I guess we have all kinds of capabilities and skills to provide smart metering or to provide voice management solutions. But I guess we should look further into the future. Voice control is a good direction, but in the future, interfaces will not be based only on a simple configuration. AI will help us to direct with our voice, with something like a normal conversation. AI will learn about our needs. That kind of solutions will benefit the elderly, people with disabilities. And then I expect cities to be digitalized, municipal services to be digitalized, and I expect that the cities, thanks to AI, will in a way learn about our needs. We all have problems, for example, with healthcare, being in contact and cooperating with the healthcare system, and I hope that these things will be made easier with the artificial intelligence. So it's all going to be the brave new world, according to you? I hope for it. So, what has to be changed in the nearest future to get long-term benefits? As a businessman, we need to think about where money will be invested. Money will be invested in smart cities. So a lot of the Internet of Things will start in smart cities. The world population, 70% of it will live in the cities in the future. So I will concentrate on the cities. Then, it's not possible to have an innovative society as a whole. 10% of society are innovative people. We need cooperation between administration and business. Together we have to look for such instruments, the kind of instruments that would be effective, that would support startups and businesses. Additionally, entrepreneurs shouldn't be treated as frauds. You know that together with the ministries, we are working on this change of perspective. I explore agriculture. In my private life, I'm fascinated by agriculture because if you don't sow, you can't yield anything. You will not get any crops. Can we save our creative element in our society? I don't know whether you know Stanisław Lem. He said that the Poles were great at abstract science and at music. We have to stimulate creativity in our society. We have to recognize those who take the risk of creating something new. And then another thing, orders, public contracts, public orders. If there are no orders, how can I prove my technology to be effective? So my thesis is as follows. If we want to really be visible in the world of high tech, let's concentrate on what we are really good at. And then local governments. How are they supposed to invest in smart cities if their level of resources is lower? We were supposed to avoid politics here, but it's difficult. If energy prices go up, the local governments will start building microgrids. Local governments have to be reasonable. They try to avoid big building contracts as they are risky. But local governments can do simpler, smaller things that are important and effective. For example, coming up with an application that checks who segregates waste and who doesn't, who pays for it and who doesn't. Right, let's work. Let's remember about the transfer of knowledge, but we have to remember about the fact that technology is meant for people. Technology has to be simple. Every year, I meet a man who specializes, who is a specialist, a maintenance person who services my alarm. And I asked him about smart homes, and he said, "Oh, I was just asked to deinstall the intelligent home system because my customer's wife was not able to manage it." And coming back to innovation among Poles, I traveled around Poland. I met with small, innovative companies with great ideas. But then we need to be able to find financing. We need to be able to join those dots. So, on the operator side, we also have to change. Our touch point with businesses, with municipalities will change. Our relationship will change. So first and foremost, we have to understand the needs of our clients and create a partnership with them. Joining different devices, joining machines is important. But first of all, we have to communicate face to face. We need conversations, real conversations. And talking back to what my colleagues said, I would emphasize 3 elements. First of all, education, then cybersecurity. And then third of all, something that I missed in our conversation was partnership. We need partnership. We need cooperation between solution producers, between businesses. We have to cooperate to create added value for our customers. Thank you very much.